Good morning and welcome back to the ProBuild360 TV Newscast. The big news since I last spoke to you all is the defeat of Andy Street at the mayoral elections by Labour candidate Richard Parker. Look how close that is, 1,500 votes in it. Thank you to Andy for everything that he's done. He's worked so hard for the Midlands. I hope he gets some well-earned rest. Typical class coming from Andy here. Wishing his successor all strength and wisdom. Been looking through the Richard Parker manifesto, which is titled "It's Time for a Fresh Start." He is a Midlands lad, seems like a decent fellow. Priority will be creating new jobs and training. He does talk about fixing the housing crisis and that he wants to build 20,000 extra homes in the region by 2031. So we'll be reading this manifesto in some detail and giving you some opinion on it at some point. Just some regular news. Construction starts on Jewellery Quarter apartment scheme by Cordia UK, being called the Lampworks. This article calls it contemporary architectural design, but I don't know. I think this is a sort of modern interpretation of the Victorian industrial architectural style, which is a big favourite of mine, and I think that it sits so well in Jewellery Quarter, in the Gunsmith Quarter, and in Digbeth and so on. I'm a big advocate for that sort of style of architecture in our city. CEO at Cordia UK said the Lampworks is the first development in our build-to-rent portfolio. That's interesting because we're seeing more of this, that developers are shifting somewhat their strategy towards build-to-rent. Seems to be a very lucrative framework for property development at the moment. So good luck to that development, good luck to Cordia. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And I've got two rather grand master plans for a couple of areas of Birmingham. The first being Druids Heath up at the Maypole. I know the area well. It is in much need of revitalisation. So we've got plans here for tower blocks alongside 1,800 homes, making way for 3,000 eco-friendly family homes, apartments and retirement living. Since Druids Heath was built by the council in the 1960s, most of it has been left the same. The only large municipal estate in Birmingham that has received no major regeneration investment. Yeah, good for Druids Heath. As I say, I know the area very well, and yeah, it is in need of regeneration. So hopefully this is the start of that. This is a master plan that's expected to be implemented over the next 20 years. These things always seem a little bit far off, but I suppose it's a good start. Smithfield, right in the middle of Birmingham. We've got a 1.9 billion Smithfield scheme, which has this festival square and marketplace and so on. The plans were lodged in January 23, but the scheme has since faced setbacks due to its proposed market space, which has now been moved to avoid disturbance of buried archeology. So I didn't know anything about this until reading this article, but there's a buried historic moat and manor house site, which is known as the birthplace of the city. So I looked this up actually, and this goes back to the circular form of the moat suggests 11th or 12th century origins. Yeah, it seems like this is the first place where people settled in what would become known as Birmingham. So I didn't know about this, but I will be learning more about it because it's very interesting. But yes, this master plan for Smithfield looks really quite impressive, some very colourful visuals. I think that these master plans just show that there is great appetite. I mean, some of it may be to do with upcoming elections and so on. Try to posture a little that, what big plans different councils have got for the region, but I think it shows some appetite for regeneration, so all positive, I would say. I have a couple of other articles for you. Emma Duncan hitting the nail on the head. We need to axe red tape to get Britain building. This is the first that I'm learning about this, but a league table that sets out the indices for cost of construction. London has overtaken Geneva and Munich to become the most expensive place in the world to build. That's astonishing. Britain's cities all rank above Berlin, Tokyo and Paris. And in 5 words, she hits the nail on the head. The reason is increased regulation. So Emma Duncan here references energy efficiency regulations. She references having to provide electric car charging points, air source heat pumps, biodiversity, nutrient neutrality, and the list goes on. And each of these have financial implications. So energy efficiency regulations imposing an additional £4,850 to the cost of building a new home. Electric car charging points between £3,500 and £5,000. Air source heat pumps are more expensive than gas boilers. Biodiversity needing to be increased by 10 to 20%, even on brownfield sites. I love the way she puts this. If you're developing a brownfield site, you have to add up all the weeds that have grown while it was wasteland. It's exactly true. She's not exaggerating. Builders are required also to contribute to social inclusiveness. So accessibility requirements are tightening at a cost of about £1,400 per home. So you add up all these individual items, and I've been saying that the cost of construction, just because of increased regulation and the onerous burden put on the shoulders of builders and developers, it can be 10 to 15% more build cost. And I think that's a pretty fair estimation. We've got tragedy leads to overregulation. So post Grenfell, we've got the new Building Safety Act. The rule is tougher than almost anywhere else. No evidence that the extra stringency will save lives. That's often the way in the UK. Gold plating regulation. What a great way of putting it. She could go on. There's a whole load of new rules have taken effect in the past 2 years, or are due to take effect in the next 3. Emma Duncan throwing a bit of shade here. I guess the government thinks more about small boats than about small businesses these days. Oof. Shots fired. Also, the regulations come from a bunch of different departments and nobody's looking at their cumulative effect. Good God, how well can you put it? That's incredibly, incredibly accurate. Most of the new rules in isolation sound admirable. Yeah, I mean, the road to the communist utopia is paved with good intentions. Some would say. I wouldn't, but some might say so. She also cites it's not just the cost. It's not just the cost, but it's the speed. Big development now takes 4 years from conception to approval, compared with about 18 months 5 years ago. This is a massive, massive point. And the sad thing about that is that time is money. Once you've acquired a site, to sit on it, waiting, and not just sit on it, but have to work with consultant after consultant and specialist after specialist and commission reports and surveys and energy statements and so on and so forth for multiple rounds of consultation that should be done first time. 4 years of those expenses compared with 18 months worth of those expenses. Yeah, it's not just the time. That time also equals more money. So it's not just the construction phase, additional costs, it's the planning stage, additional costs. It's a really, really impressive article. She's absolutely on the money. The regulatory burden contributes by reducing the viability of development. I think I've probably said that exact sentence 1,000 times in the last year. And she's even identified the impact on small businesses as compared to big companies. Big companies are complaining, small ones are going under. Imagine you're a builder with a promising brownfield site. You got to survey all the interesting weeds on it and recreate a higher level of biodiversity. So the regulatory burden is one reason the bankruptcy rate in construction is the highest of any sector, with a dozen companies going under every day. That's astonishing. A business already dominated by a few big companies, therefore increasingly concentrated, which will further raise the cost of homes. This is exactly what I've been saying. We've got the Competitions and Markets Authority conducting an investigation right now into the accusation that the UK house building market is a monopoly. This is what we're facing. She then goes on to talk about the Tories creating the problem, leaving it to their successors to solve. I'm not going to get into this because I'm not going to be partisan about it. But in general, an incredibly accurate analysis of the UK house building industry. And William Hague identifying the skill shortage as a complete and total barrier to the achievement of the British government's targets for 300,000 new homes. I love what he says here. Even if the Greenbelt was declared to be a giant new town and NIMBYism was made illegal, and anyone who thought of putting up a house was instantly given planning permission, it's very unlikely that such a number could be reached. We do not have in this country the electricians, plumbers, bricklayers, plasterers, tilers, scaffolders, bathroom fitters and roofers who would be needed to build 300,000 homes each year. Out of everything in this article, I think that the one thing that I read that I felt was most accurate is that it's about an attitude that is put forward to young people that university education is the most decent pathway for them, and that trades and being an engineer and working with your hands and so on are not seen as honourable, or they're not promoted as good careers, which is an absolute travesty, because men and women that get their hands dirty and have the technical skills, knowledge and experience to know how things work and how to fix things when they break are heroes, and they should be put on a pedestal as such, and they should be lionized to young people and seen as role models, because young people are craving identity and skills and so on to make themselves feel useful and valuable in this world, and this is such an easy solution to that. Someone can build you a house. How much more valuable can you be, really? But we will be working towards changing that attitude and continuing to do so until the British honest hard-working builder is held up as the hero that he is. So well said, William Hague. So until the next one, keep up the good fight and see you soon.